I think there's still some people trying to get in, so we'll start in a few seconds. And welcome. Sergeant, do you still have a lot of folks? Okay. We'll wait till people come in through the metal detector.
Are we over capacity?
I know. We'll spare as things go on.
I would laugh mine. If we were over capacity, like that. I was just saying there are a couple of seats, but.
You're saving seats.
Right.
So which one is first?
I agree.
The gentleman in the back, the gray shirt.
That's
You gotta, yes, you're
blocking the light.
You're hitting the
That's right,
lights.
you hit the lights.
It's okay, but it's like a light show when we're having the meeting, you know?
That, you don't need that pen, do you?
No, it's yours. Help yourself.
There's another
Oh, that's
I saw-
right. Sorry.
That's right, you thought I wasn't going to be here.
No, not you. We
Oh, no, that somebody else was going to be here.
There's a lot of people from Sonata and a lot from the Aquachans.
There's a martini and standing there for me.
Yeah, there's probably not that many people for that.
It's not getting watered down now.
Oh, no, no. No, when I
Can we
walked
text
in,
and get a second one?
Have an app for that?
before I get to the chair, it's already
It's
being
already
That's
being
nice.
made.
shaken.
That sounds good. Now you have that in my mind when I get home. I don't think mine will be waiting for me though.
You're gonna have to do your own.
Right,
thinking.
exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, once we get past topic one of it.
Everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. Welcome to the regular city commission meeting for Tuesday, May 22nd. I'll call the meeting to order. It's just a little after 7 o'clock. If everyone can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then if you don't mind, actually, I would like to have a moment of silence. We, as everyone knows, we had another school shooting. This time 10 people were killed in Santa Fe High School in Santa Fe, Texas. And, we just had the recent school shooting here in our own community in Parkland in February. So it seems like we just keep doing these moments of silence and nothing changes, but hopefully things are starting to change now. If you're not familiar with the lawsuit, Wilton Manors and I, as a plaintiff, have sued the state to overturn the preemptions against elected city and county officials from passing common sense gun regulations. So we're one of several communities that are trying to try to take some action to adopt some common sense gun reforms in Florida. And it's the same preemptions that are occurring in other states as well. So if we're able to do something here in Florida, that can maybe start a national movement. But if we can have a moment of silence in honor of the 10 victims from Santa Fe High School. Thank you. Thank you. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Carson?
Here.
Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Newton?
Here.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Here.
Mayor Resnick?
Here. Vice Mayor, would you like to welcome our full house of guests?
I would indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, you could have been a lot of places tonight, but we appreciate the fact that you decided to participate in your local city government here in Wilton Manors. On one note, today is Harvey Milk Day, and a lot of communities across our nation are celebrating May 22nd. So I ask that you please remember those that have been elected and have served and have advocated for the cause of equality, including the life and sacrifice of former Supervisor Harvey Milk from California. We did comment earlier about with the moment of silence for all the students that passed away in Santa Fe. And just as a sobering reminder, in this year, we have had more students killed in schools than we have had in combat as soldiers. That is a shameful statistic, I think, that we need to really take to heart and inform our legislators to act accordingly. So thank you all for being here, and look forward to a productive meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner.
I was wondering if the city manager could make a couple of comments about the video streaming.
Oh. Do you want to just provide an update with respect to video streaming of the city commission meeting?
Well, there's,
Our IT division and city clerk's office are working together to update our web streaming capabilities, and we're hopeful that, as we get pricing and quotes to update and upgrade that service, we'll be able to be back online.
could we also mention something about that it is possible to find the online streaming?
Oh. Well, I understand there may be somebody, maybe through SFGN, I understand maybe web streaming independently the commission meetings through their tools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And actually, just a little shout out. We have our president of our distinguished Wilton Manors Business Association, Tim Moffett, is here tonight. If you have a local business, you haven't checked out our business association, just wave your hand so they know how to find you. Please reach out to him. He's doing amazing things with our business association this past year. All right, we, first of all, any additions or changes or deletions for the agenda? Anybody? All right. Oh,
Mayor?
Justin, go ahead.
Just under new business, I'd like to have a commitment to the campaign of the Orange Campaign for Every Town on gun safety and gun violence, as maybe item B.
We have a B, we'll do it as C.
Okay. C, excuse me.
All right. Anybody else? All right, if no other changes, the agenda is approved. Proclamations, we have a number of proclamations today, so before we get into our regular agenda. First, this is a great honor. We have a wonderful police department at Wilton Manors, and this is in recognition of our police department. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Wilton Manors Police Department. And whereas there were 58,627 assaults against law enforcement officers in 2016, resulting in approximately 16,677 injuries. And whereas the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas 360 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 129 officers killed in 2017 and 231 officers killed in previous years. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty were honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 30th Annual Candlelight Vigil, which occurred on the evening of May 13th, 2018. And whereas the Candlelight Vigil, as part of National Police Week, which took place this year on May 13th through the 19th, fell on a Sunday, some events took place before the official dates of Police Week 2018. Whereas May 15th was designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags were flown at half-staff. Now therefore, I, Gary Resnick, Mayor of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, formally designate May 13th through the 19th, 2018 as Police Week in the City of Wilton Manors, and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation. And this is signed with the city seal this May 22nd, 2018. And Chief, are you coming up to accept this? Do a picture.
There'll be some gray today, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. On behalf of the men and women that serve this community, we are very proud of the job that we do, and I think you'll see some good news coming out of our department in the very near future in regards to all the hard work that we do. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Commission.
Thank you. All right, now we had a little bit of a discussion about this item earlier, but this is also in recognition of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas every day 96 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides each year. And whereas Americans are 25 more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people. And whereas Hidayah Pendleton, a 15-year-old teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later in Chicago, would now be celebrating her 21st birthday. Whereas to help honor Hidayah and the 96 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 1st, 2018, the first Friday in June, as the 4th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hidayah's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, choosing this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on the first Friday in June 2018 to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 1st, Americans will honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children and our communities safe. Now therefore, I, Gary Resnick, Mayor of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, do hereby proclaim Friday, June 1st, 2018, as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of Wilton Manors, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to prevent gun violence and encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effect of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And this is signed with the city seal this May 22nd, 2018. And I understand we have a number of people that are going to come up, or possibly one representative to come up for this proclamation. All right. Do a picture in the center, and then podium is yours.
How are you?
Move over, Gary, in the middle.
It could, I hope, but not.
There we go. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming in.
We all get taller.
I think I'm getting shorter.
Hello. My name is Cindy Curtis. I am a proud resident of Wilton Manors for 1 year now. It's a great city and great leaders. I'm here on behalf of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and we want to thank you for this important proclamation. A lot of what I have here was already said by Gary, but I believe basically it's the Wear Orange campaign is part of the National Gun Violence Awareness Day and commemorates and honors a 15-year-old teen, Hidayah Pendleton, who was tragically shot and killed in the streets of Chicago. But it also commemorates and honors the 17 children and adults killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High, right next door to us here in Broward County. And this speech was given to me about 2 weeks ago, actually 2 days before the Santa Fe shootings. We have to add that, and everybody's hearts are full, for sure. Wear Orange is a celebration of life and a call to action to help save lives. Orange symbolizes the value of human life and reminds us that we are united by our shared hope that we can, by working together, create a safer country for all Americans. And this Saturday, join us. There's an event at Pine Trails Park in Parkland from 10 to 4. This Wear Orange event is very family-oriented, include a youth concert, child activity areas, and food trucks. And once again, in closing, we'd like to thank you, Wilton Manors City Commission, for your support. And thank you all. And if you'd like more information, please see us. I just found out about the group about 2 weeks ago and said that I would accept this on their behalf, and I now have made a pledge to have this something that I am active in every day. Thank you. And we're called it's called Moms Demand Action, but you don't have to be a mother. You can know someone that's a mom. You can have a friend that's a mom. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone on the commission like to say anything with respect to this, or are we good? All right, I just wanted to, just one comment. First of all, thank you for coming out and for bringing awareness to this incredibly important issue. Ironically, we put in our metal detector outside 1 week before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, basically in response to the shooting that occurred at Fort Lauderdale High School and then what happened in Las Vegas, which was shortly before that.
Airport.
I'm sorry, Fort Lauderdale, right, Fort Lauderdale Airport, right, correct. I don't want to, tempt anybody with respect to that. But it is a different world that we're living in now. Just a little bit of information about the lawsuit that we filed, and I'm not going to talk about this too long because it is pending litigation. But we had an idea that we would pass a regulation that would require a gun dealer, and there's several in Wilton Manors, that a gun dealer notify our police department if someone is denied a gun permit because they failed the background check. However, because Florida law has, Florida statutes basically say that we, as a city commission, could be personally liable for up to $5,000 in penalties and up to $100,000 in civil liability and be removed from office if we pass any type of gun or ammunition regulation. So we did not pass that ordinance because we were afraid of the potential civil penalties, plus we'd be removed from office and the ordinance would be preempted by Florida law anyhow. So we decided to sue and challenge that penalty provision in the Florida statutes. And we are being represented by a firm out of New York, but the lawsuit is being paid for by Everytown, which is a national organization that tries to support local community and state common sense gun regulations. And so it's not costing Wilton Manors taxpayers anything, but we're joining several other local governments, Coral Springs, the vice mayor of Coral Springs, Pembroke Pines, the mayor of Pembroke Pines, Wilton Manors, and myself as a plaintiff in this lawsuit to try and overturn these statutes that basically create penalties so that local governments are afraid to pass common sense gun regulations. So we will keep you posted about that, and you'll learn more about that during the course of the litigation. But we are trying to do what we can to try and make our community safe. And the reason we put the metal detector in is we did an active shooter training in this room, and basically we were told by our SWAT team that if somebody came in here with a gun, everybody would be dead within 3 minutes, and there's nothing they could do to stop it. So this is really for your safety, because we don't want people to feel discouraged from coming to public meetings and feel like they're unsafe. So we encourage you and support everybody joining the campaign to raise awareness, and thanks for coming out tonight. Next, thank you. Next proclamation, we actually gave these awards out at our, what was the event?
Volunteer luncheon.
At our Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon, where we recognize wonderful community spirited folks. I'm trying to find the proclamations for this.
I think they were in order, too.
Okay.
Someone named John O'Connor.
I know, I'm looking for the proclamation. Foster care. Bless her, Karen.
We got like 12 there.
I know, there's like a zillion proclamations. Ah, here it is. Okay, so we have a Community Affairs Advisory Board, and are any of the folks here from the Community Affairs Advisory Board? David, all right. Want to thank you, and we've created a Community Spirit Award. They recognize an individual and a business every year that goes above and beyond to support Wilton Manors and our events and activities. And so I'm going to read this proclamation and recognize the business and the individual who received the award this year. Whereas strong volunteerism has been a cornerstone of success and history of the City of Wilton Manors, and whereas the city's Community Affairs Advisory Board made a call for nominations for its 2018 Community Spirit Awards to honor notable city volunteer business and individual for contributions made in 2017. And whereas nominations were received for resident John O'Connor and Hunters Bar, and I'm not sure if there, I didn't see it. All right, and Hunters. And whereas said nominations cited many contributions to the community, including service for John on the city's Budget Review Advisory Committee, the West Area Wilton Manors Neighborhood Association, Friends of the Library, and service for Hunters, and basically being involved in every single city event that we put on, sponsoring every event that we have, and just being, and actually doing cleanups on Wilton Drive, doing all kinds of events to support our community. Whereas the nomination also noted support for the Friends of the Library book fairs, city's annual tree giveaway event, Broward County Waterway event cleanup, National Night Out, numerous other events sponsored by the city of Wilton. Wilton Manors would not be possible without the support of John and Hunters. And whereas CAB agrees with this nomination and voted to recognize John as the Volunteer Individual of the Year for his 2017 contributions, and Hunters as the Business of the Year for their 2017 contributions. Now therefore, I, Gary Resnick, Mayor of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, proclaimed, because this was done at a prior luncheon, proclaimed April 28, 2018 as John O'Connor Day and Hunters Day in the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, and urge all residents to join me in this special observance, and this was signed with the city seal 28th day of April 2018. So if we can have John and Hunters come on up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It's up here.
Congratulations.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mark.
Would you like to say anything?
On the behalf of the entire Hunters family, it is our honor and pride to accept this proclamation from Mr. Mayor Gary Resnick, the City Commission, as well as the good folks at Wilton Manors. Thank you very much. By accepting this proclamation, it renews Hunters Wilton Manors' commitment to the City of Wilton Manors in any future community efforts. Thank you very much for the honor.
No, thank you.
At first, I'd like to thank the Community Advisory Board for the nomination. To the individuals who nominated me, I hope there was more than one nominated. I didn't get this by default.
It was just you this year.
Okay. But I encourage anyone who currently doesn't volunteer for something within the city to get involved in something in the city. The city staff makes it very easy to work with on any of the committees that you're involved with the city, and your neighborhood associations also are out there to try to focus on the individual areas that we all live in. So Again, thank you very much for the award. It was very surprising to get. Thank you.
Okay. Next is to recognize National Foster Care Month. And we have two recipients coming up for this as well. All right, so let me find... All right, this is in recognition of National Foster Care Month. Whereas the youth of this state and nation are our most precious resource and hope for the future, and they deserve every opportunity for a safe and happy life. Whereas children and youth in foster care need meaningful connections with caring adults who can be a supportive and lasting presence in their lives. Every year, however, approximately 30,000 young people leave our nation's foster care system without lifelong families. And whereas across Florida, devoted foster parents make great efforts to change the life of a child or youth in foster care by adding the security and stability that can make a significant difference in their growth into adults. And whereas ChildNet serves as the community-based lead agency in both Broward and Palm Beach counties, as such, it is the single private nonprofit entity responsible for managing the local system of services and support for the community's most vulnerable children. And whereas since its beginnings, Kids in Distress, Inc. programs have expanded into a comprehensive continuum of care that fills the gaps and meets the needs of at-risk children and families in our community. Kids in Distress boasts a 5-acre campus in Wilton Manors and has created a working culture and community partnerships that are driven by compassion, trust, and safety. Whereas we thank the many agencies, advocates, child welfare professionals, elected officials, guardians, and support groups in the state of Florida who have offered prevention, intervention, foster care, family counseling, and educational programs that have led to a decrease in the number of children in foster care. Whereas each May, National Foster Care Month provides an opportunity to shine a light on the experiences of children and youth in the foster care system, raise awareness of the urgent needs of these young people, and encourage all caring people to get involved as a foster care or adoptive parent, volunteer, mentor, employer, or member of the community, with the hopes of making a positive impact on a young life. Now therefore, I, Gary Resnick, Mayor of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as National Foster Care Month, and this is signed with the city seal this May 22nd, 2018. And we have two proclamations, one for ChildNet and one for Kids in Distress, and I know there's a couple representatives here from both. Larry Rain is President and CEO of ChildNet, and I know Mark Tugi is the President and CEO of Kids in Distress, and Robin, I'm going to get this name wrong, Bourguignon, is that close? Okay. Is also here from Kids in Distress. We'll ask both of them, or all of them, to come on up for these proclamations.
Thank you.
Got to scoot in the seal here, ladies.
Towards the middle a little bit.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Would either of you like to? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The City of Wilton Manors, its citizens, have done tremendous things to support foster care children in Broward County over the years. both by supporting this wonderful agency, Kids in Distress, and also by caring for an awful lot of our abused, abandoned, neglected children as foster parents and as relative caregivers. I just want to call on you to do even more. I want people to really think about fostering and adopting. We are on the verge of a critical need for more foster parents, not only in Florida, but across the nation, as the opioid epidemic takes hold and as certain changes in federal legislation will make the need for foster parents even greater over the next couple of years. So thank you very much for all you've done, but please help these children more.
Thank you. Just like to reiterate that statement. First of all, Mayor Resnick, Commissioner Carson, and just let you know that Chief O'Connell is actually on our board of directors. We have a very strong partnership with the City of Wilton Manors. The United States has over 437 children in foster care. That's enough to fill 4 stadiums, 4 Miami Dolphin stadiums. So just like Larry said, we need a lot of help. We need a lot of help recruiting parents, supporting parents. Give us a call at Kids in Distress, www.kidinc.org. We support over 300 families every single year, foster families, many of them 15%, 20% of them are in Wilton Manors. So please give us a call because we feel like we're the Cadillac of foster care across Broward and Palm Beach counties, and we're there to support our foster parents. There's really a lot of negative connotation even still with foster care, but I got to tell you, it is one of the most rewarding experience that anybody can ever have. Thank you for your support, commissioners. We're a proud business. We're proud to be here in Wilton Manors.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want also to let you know that I was a foster parent for 7 months, and this city commission was a foster family for 7 months because my little boy, and actually before that, I had him for 7 months, and they supported me through that. They gave him an extended family. They made sure that he was fed and taken care of even when I was running a little bit late for certain meetings. So the reward is something you can't imagine, and I encourage you to sign up and at least do one of the introductory classes. ChildNet was, I've had a year-long relationship with them, and their support staff, their caseworkers, their advocates are absolutely so totally available for foster parents and the children. And giving children a safe place to live, giving children the care and support that they need has made a difference in my life, and I think it will make a difference in yours. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and for the work you do.
All right, next we're up to some presentations. Chief, we have the Employee of the Quarter presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. If I could ask the code compliance team to come on up here. Mr. Mayor, Commission, ladies and gentlemen, this is our code compliance team, and they were selected to receive the David Dotson Memorial Award for the Employee of the Quarter for the first quarter of 2018, and here's why. The team recently completed a commercial corridor action plan for the purpose of aesthetically enhancing our city's main corridors. Importantly, the team worked with many business owners to eliminate the over 500 violations that they found, and they achieved compliance without having to go to the special magistrate. In addition to the above, the team also conducted over 300 business inspections to ensure each business was properly licensed and complied with all state and local safety regulations. No doubt it was a tedious process, but it was done with the commitment to make our residents and visitors feel safe. And certainly our residential neighborhoods are equally important because home ownership is usually the most important investment for most of us. Surely, home is where the heart is, and that is so true here in Wilton Manors. Included in their efforts are rental properties and vacation homes as they work to ensure both compliance and peaceful coexistence in our neighborhoods, each having its own unique identity. Not an easy task when you're playing the role of peacekeeper. In all of the above, when compliance was not achieved, the respective cases were presented to our special magistrate. In each case, the burden of proof would lie with the team to prove the specific elements of the violation and meet the very demanding requirements of Florida statute. Again, a very tedious process completed for the sole purpose of achieving compliance. It has been said that a rising tide lifts all boats. That saying forms the very foundation of the work that they do and how important it is to our community. Through their continuing efforts, the property values in Wilton Manors continue to rise. As the work they do with our residents and business owners ensure compliance with our code, with our city codes. They have received commendations from both residents and staff alike. Their actions have helped reduce calls for service and potential crime on properties once occupied by vagrants. Their actions have changed the optics of our city and shed a positive light on our community, which it constantly reminds us that life's just better here in Wilton Manors. So, Code Compliance Team, congratulations on your selection, and you got a thankless job.
Not really.
But thank you.
We're thanking you.
Thank you.
You know, and I'm going to do a little unusual because this is a presentation, but we do appreciate your
Efforts, absolutely.
your efforts. And as the chief said, the single largest factor in increasing property values, and Lori Parrish, as property appraiser, said this for 25 years, I've been saying it for 20 years, is code compliance. And our team does a great job of achieving compliance. So if we can do a
Group shot.
picture in the front with everybody. Promise not to circulate it in the community.
Okay, keep moving over. Keep
Move over to the
moving
right a little
over.
bit.
Get in the middle, get in the middle.
You guys look so nice.
I know they all. They're normally in uniforms.
Good job, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief, you're next as well. And
This is,
I'm sorry, go
this
ahead.
is Julio Davila, who is the supervisor. And again, sometimes it's like herding kittens or cats, but he keeps the hand on it, finger on the pulse, and I can't be more proud of Julio and the job that he has done. And he's, believe it or not, he's the newest guy on the block. So Julio.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you and good evening. The code officers, the code staff has worked really hard to bring about change within our community, but this wouldn't be possible without the leadership of our police command, our city administration, and the city commission. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, Mr.
Next,
Mayor.
Chief,
and
you have
Commission.
some other recognitions.
Yes, we're going to do a life-saving award, so if I could have Officers Garcia, Officer Arias, and one of the officers, Officer Rodriguez, has taken a job with Tallahassee Police Department, so she will not be here tonight. Tallahassee's gain is our loss. On Tuesday, March 13th of this year, at 3:49 hours, Wilton Manors police officers Garcia, Rodriguez, and Arias were dispatched to an apartment at the 3000 block of Northwest 9th Avenue in reference to a medical call. Dispatch advised that a male was unconscious and not breathing. Upon arrival, Officer Arias and Officer Rodriguez made contact with the roommate, who confirmed that the victim, later identified as Jonathan Greenberg, was unconscious and not breathing and inside the apartment. The roommate advised that Mr. Greenberg had been using illegal narcotics. Without hesitation, Officer Arias and Officer Rodriguez entered the apartment and found the victim unconscious and not breathing. Officer Rodriguez checked and confirmed there was no pulse and began CPR. Officer Arias deployed his city-issued Narcan in hopes of bringing Mr. Greenberg back to life. The first dose had little or no effect. Officer Arias used Officer Garcia's supply when she arrived to assist. Upon the second deployment of Narcan, Officer Rodriguez detected a slight pulse in the carotid artery. Officer Arias, Rodriguez, and Garcia then continually assess the victim's condition until Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue arrived. They briefed the paramedics upon their arrival about how much Narcan was deployed, and the paramedics took over the care of the patient and transported him to Broward General Trauma Center, where he survived. Officers Arias, Rodriguez, and Garcia, you were awarded one of the department's highest honors, the Life Saving Award. Your quick actions in beginning CPR and deploying Narcan to the victim was a direct result of him regaining consciousness and getting a second chance at life. Also, because of your quick actions, you brought great credit to yourself and the Wilton Manors Police Department, and we congratulate you on a job well done.
Marcy, get in the middle, move over. Come on. No, the other way.
To your right.
Trying to get in the middle of the seal, that's all. Next week she needs to learn how to right and left
Video with. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, if I could just take a point of personal privilege. Tonight is Julie Kuhn's last commission meeting. After 29 years of service to the city of Wilton Manors, she will be retiring next week. And to be very honest with you, I don't know what I'm going to do without her. However, we have Kelly to take her place, and she's had training under Julie's wing for the last 2 months. 2 months, and so Kelly's been left in. I've been left in good hands as a result of Julie's. Julie, where are you? She's hiding.
There she is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Julie. She's been an absolute treasure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner.
Well, Chief, I'm glad you said that because I asked the mayor to let me say a few words because I didn't know what was going on with Julie. I've known Julie a long time. She started off, I believe, in the Recreation Department many years ago and worked her way up to the Police Department, Detective Bureau, and then finished off with the chief. So it's been a pleasure knowing you, and God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Chief.
More
And,
seats up front.
Yeah, we'll let some folks head out. And some seats here if anybody wants to sit down.
I think they're waiting for me to get up first.
Yeah, there's plenty of seats in the back.
Boy, the bride side is leaving.
What?
The bride side.
Yeah.
That's not the original, that's...
I was going to ask if he was at the royal wedding. I was going to ask if he was at the royal wedding. All right, next we have a couple more presentations. First is our QWL Employee of the Quarter. Our own Chair of the QWL, Johnny Goodnight.
Good evening. Johnny Goodnight with the City Manager's Office. Once again, I ask, could we not follow the Life Saving Award? And, well, you see how that worked out. But as chairperson of the city's Quality Work-Life Committee, it is my pleasure to once again recognize our QWL Employee of the Quarter. While doing an exceptional job in his routine duties, Richardson Historic Park and Nature Preserve Supervisor Michael Herman has taken on multiple additional challenges within the Leisure Services Department. Due to a vacancy in Leisure Services, Michael had assumed various responsibilities, including supervision of the Park Ranger Program and city liaison for street festivals, including Stonewall Pride, Wicked Manors, and the 5K Rainbow Run. Mike also does an outstanding job leading or supporting city special events such as Halloween Spooktacular, the Veterans Day ceremony, Taste of the Island, and the holiday lighting event. Mike is credited with a significant increase in Richardson Historic Park facility rentals and played a key role in the recent tropical plant fair at that facility. As noted in the Employee of the Quarter nominations submitted by Leisure Services Director Patrick Can, Mike has done an exceptional job. He is quick to volunteer to support city functions and consistently demonstrates a positive attitude and personal commitment to his responsibilities. Everyone is pleased to interact with Michael, and if you've attended just one city event, then you're sure to have seen Michael working hard to ensure it's flawless, professional, and it provides another reason why life's just better here. The Quality Work-Life Committee is honored to recognize Michael as Employee of the Quarter for January, February, March 2018 quarter. Michael, would you come up, please? Now, our Employee of the Quarter presentation doesn't usually include a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh.
It would be very brief. No.
Leisure Services, that's right.
But when friends of mine, Kimberly and Kyle, said that they were...
the lights off in the...
When good friends of mine, Kimberly and Kyle, told me that they were getting married, I urged them to look at Richardson Historic Park as the venue for their marriage. And they did, and they loved it. And anyone else who's considering or knows someone who's considering a wedding, it certainly is the perfect venue. Just a couple pictures I want to show you real quick. But after talking with Kimberly and Kyle about the wedding and how everything went, Kimberly said that working with Michael was absolutely perfect. And you know what? He really was a lifesaver. And that's how you segue into that. Well, we're always grateful to have Wilton Manors Kiwanis Club sponsor our Employee of the Quarter program, and it's my honor to introduce, I believe it's David Platt that's here with us this evening. Hi, David.
Michael, it's on behalf of Wilton Manors Kiwanis, it's always a pleasure. It's a gift card for $100. Thank you, sir. And without a doubt, this man sets an example for everybody else to follow in the city when it comes to work. And it's always a pleasure dealing with him, whatever it is. And we're proud to have you. Thank you.
I appreciate being honored with this, but I couldn't do it without my peers and the great team that I work with each and every day. Thank you all.
Thank you. Over here with us.
Don't be shy. Come on, Johnny. Come on, Johnny. Move over.
For the wedding? I don't think so. Oh, we get... Oh.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. Next, actually, I recognize Leslie Brown is here. So we have a presentation by Broward County Public Schools on the third amendment to the interlocal agreement for public school facility planning. Mrs. Henderson, did you want to say anything to introduce this item, or?
Lisa White from the school board is here to do the presentation on the third amendment to the interlocal agreement for school concurrency. And Leslie is here also should you have any questions after the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Good evening. Leslie Brown, Chief Portfolio Services Officer. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. We also have Lisa White with us. She's going to do the presentation. She's one of our planners from the school district. And just thanks so much for having us tonight. Sure. Lisa?
I'm happy to report the status of this agreement right now. It's newly adopted. It requires that the ILA, the interlocal agreement for public school facility planning, is a contract that we have with all the cities. It kind of lays out what our responsibilities are to each other for development approval. And the amendment requirements in there maintain that at least 75% of the municipalities have to agree before a change can be made. And last week, just thought I would start off by saying we got our 75th percentile. So it actually is amended, but we haven't received a lot of resistance
for this amendment because it was kind of seen as something that was a win-win for everyone. But it's fairly technical, and I'll try to move through this fairly quickly. This is related to public school concurrency, and public school concurrency is a growth management tool that requires that infrastructure for development be available at the time development occurs, and it applies to things like roads and sewer and water, and it also applies to schools. And it temporarily prohibits development from being approved if upon the review it shows that the infrastructure is not there to serve the development, and a developer has the option to either wait until the needed capacity becomes available in our 5-year district educational facilities plan, or they can propose proportionate share mitigation to pay for the cost to expand the capacity. The key requirements of public school concurrency first are that you set the parameters in the agreement that we have with all the cities. That's the interlocal agreement that is of discussion today. We locally establish what our concurrency service areas are, which is the geographic unit of measurement for which we do our development reviews, and that's reviewed against the capacity at each individual school boundary. And then you have to decide what your level of service standard is, and that's basically the threshold of development that you deem acceptable before you say that there is no more capacity available. And in our district, when we originally started concurrency, it was in 2008, and we set our level of service standard as 110% of a school's permanent capacity. In 2010, we amended it to 100% of gross capacity, which would allow the inclusion of portables in that calculation. And that was temporary until the 2018-19 year, and starting the 19-20, it was going to revert back to 110% permanent capacity. And then finally, the responsibility of the school district is to make sure that you can afford your level of service standard and show that in your 5-year capital plan that you have enough facilities planned and funded to meet your level of service standard at each year concurrency service areas. A level of service standard is the standard to which a public school facility is expected to operate, and it's expressed as a ratio of enrollment divided by capacity. And that's just an example there of how that would be calculated. And this is an example of one school, one that has portables on it. And if you have a level of service standard based at 100% of gross capacity or 110% of permanent capacity, if you can't meet your level of service, how many students will be subject to change, to a boundary change under either of those standards? So at the time, there were a lot of relocatables in 2010 that were really reliant on to keep our communities intact. When you have a level of service standard deficiency, you have 3 options. You can either expand your school system, your school facilities, you can change school boundaries, or you can modify the parameters of your agreement through an amendment. And in 2010, we had to do that in response to the financial crisis of the Great Recession, and the school district went from growing gangbusters to declining enrollment. And when you have declining enrollment, the state says, if you have more seats than you have students, then you cannot use state money to build more buildings. And so to address these deficiencies, we amended the ILA to allow for incremental boundary changes. At the time, there was a term sawgrass to seagrass, where there was not enough permanent capacity seats to absorb all the overages if the relocatables didn't count anymore. And during that process, it exposed a competition for resources between the East and the West, and that the challenges that they had with the school district were very different depending on where you were. And so we felt it was appropriate in going through all the cities that we address both scenarios to our communities that we were asking for this change. So one of the things that was born out of that 2010 amendment was the genesis of the Comprehensive Relocatable Plan, and that is an annual assessment, an inventory of our relocatables and an annual funding allocation that is a part of our 5-year plan now to get rid of portables where they're no longer needed or wanted. And then where they are needed and wanted and wanting to continue for use, that we reinvest in them with things like covered walkways and things. So, Student Success Opportunity Schools, that's a process that is that the district has undertaken to address under-enrollment and underperformance of our schools. And it provides a grassroots effort, and it is to provide programmatic solutions to address these things, whether it be a grade reconfiguration for a school, a magnet program put into a school, a repurposing of a facility. There's a whole lot of really great solutions that we've worked with our schools to turn them around. We have our general obligation bond, and a very small portion of that money was designated towards replacing the portables with permanent capacity in the southwest part of the county where our schools were so critically overcrowded. And then finally, we have our school boundaries process, and since 2010 happened and we amended our ILA, we just wanted to make the statement that 41 school boundary changes have taken place. So it isn't that kicking the can down the road, kicking the can down the road, and you're not doing anything, that we've actually had 41 since 2010. The reason why we needed this change is because since 2010, the proliferation of school choice and charters has made it really difficult to control where a student goes to school just by moving a line. And then combined with the fact that we no longer can use state money to build schools, it became a problem to rely only on school boundary changes to control enrollment. What you see here is a picture of what the county looks like at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Basically anything with a pink or a red is a school that does not meet its level of service standard. And the pink means just less of an overage, and the red means a more severe overage. And this is what it would look like in 2019-20 when the level of service standard reverts back to 110% permanent. So what we're coming before all of our cities with was first we had 110%, then we had 100%, and some cities preferred one over the other. So we said, okay, well, let's come up with something that allows for both. And this just allows for the higher of either calculation, and it seemed to make most of our communities, it was acceptable to most of our communities. And there was no one in a situation where they would lose capacity by the reversion or the next change. And this is a picture of what the county looks like under the alternate level service standard. And it's very similar. There's less red or pink, and certainly less red, maybe a few more pinks. But there's not a huge difference between them, but there are a couple of communities in the district that have portables that would like to continue to have them count, so they're not forced in a boundary seat change when there are actually seats available at their school. So it would allow us to have more flexibility within our level of service standard, avoid boundary changes when there are seats on the school, keep the integrity of our communities intact by keeping them stable, recognizing as much capacity as we can without jeopardizing the educational operations of a school, but still allow for growth and development to occur as much as possible, and maintain our opportunity to hold developers accountable to the school district when they're actually triggering and exceeding that maximum threshold. This is a numeric table of what those maps were, and so you can see either standard there. And the alternate level service, which is the higher of, is on the bottom, and you can see that it just represents the least number of schools that wouldn't meet the level of service standard, the least number of student stations over the level of service standard, and the least number of classrooms we'd need to meet our level of service standard at each of our schools, district-wide. I'm rushing through this a little bit because it's already passed. So where we are right now, as I mentioned, the 21st municipality signed on May 16th, and so it's effective, and the school district now will move forward with the policy amendments that we need to make to enable implementation of our new level of service standard, and that's expected by October 2018 to be completed. And once we could do that, we would also look to our cities to amend their comprehensive plans and land development regulations to incorporate the level of service standard in those implementing documents as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Once we get the lights on, we'll open it up for any questions from the City Commission. Or comments. We'll do both. All right, any comments or questions from the City Commission? No? Julie?
Thank you for being here, and this is one area that I've always wanted an explanation, because every year when I approve the plan, I want to kind of have a better understanding, so thank you for explaining. With the level of service standards, does how the structure of the school is, well, when it's declining, does it have anything to do with the level of the structure? What's the word I'm looking for? Somebody help me here.
Capacity? No.
Not the capacity, but the infrastructure itself, the school itself. Is there anything about the structure itself? It's, good heavens, gentlemen, what's the word I'm thinking about?
Integrity,
The integrity of
functionality.
this, thank you. The integrity of the structure.
Sorry.
Not just the capacity, but the integrity. I mean, you may have a great school that's got adequate, you may have a large school that has adequate capacity, but it's not fully air-conditioned, or its floors are pulling up, the ceilings are coming down. So how does that figure into concurrency, or does it?
So thank you, Commissioner Carson, for that question. Level of service does not play a role in the actual conditions within the facility of the school. It really has more to do with the enrollment versus the capacity of the school. Okay?
Good.
I can tell, I just wanted to, just for the record and actually just for disclosure for purposes for the minutes, I sit on the Oversight Committee for this agreement. And what she made seemed very simple. By the way, you should give that presentation at every one of our meetings, and it would help. I've been on that committee for 5 years, I think now, and Leslie Brown is the director of the district who staffs our committee. And we get into close to knockdown dragouts about these issues, seriously. And because people don't realize that this has a tremendous impact not only on families sending, students to the schools, but also on the development committee, because where they decide to build a school can be very different in terms of what their fees and responsibilities are going to be for supporting the school district. So what we try to do is look countywide and make sure that it's implemented to the extent possible in a fair manner. It's not been easy. It's been a very difficult process. Wilton Manors, frankly, is not that affected. We only have one district school in our city, and it's not at full capacity generally. I think at times it's been, but it's currently not at, it's close to full capacity, right, because of the magnet programs. But of course, the middle school and high schools that our students here go to are affected by this as well. But this is a really difficult issue for them to administer at the district level, given the size of the district and the diversity of the district, and it's a lot of work. So I'm one of the city representatives on the committee. There's a representative from the county commission, and then just citizen representatives, and then several school board members are on the committee as well, and we meet quarterly to try and hash out all of these issues. So appreciate you coming out and explaining the agreement and the amendment and what this accomplishes. I think you've done a very good job of trying to accomplish a difficult task as simply as possible. So.
Thank you, Mayor Resnick. On behalf of Mr. Renzi and the entire cabinet, I just really appreciate your work. We all appreciate your work on the Oversight Committee. It is not an easy committee to work on. Mayor Resnick is there consistently representing this community as well as all the children in schools in this school district. And we certainly appreciate it. There are some cities that are not as well represented. And so I just hats off, and your calm and honest nature at those meetings is also truly appreciate it. So we're here to do the presentation this evening, and then what we would ask is that it could get onto an agenda here sometime in the next session, and then maybe if you need us to come back, we're certainly happy to come back and answer any more questions, or if any of the commissioners personally would like us to come out and meet with you for any more questions, we're certainly available for that also.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Without any objection, we'll ask our city manager to put this on the next city commission agenda. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for presentations. And next is comments from the public. There's a couple public hearings tonight, so if you're here to speak on any of those items on the agenda, you don't need to come out now on public comment. But if you would like to come up on any other item that's not up for for a public hearing, coming up, we just ask that you confine your remarks to 3 minutes. Thanks. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Michael Rayner, 2607 Northeast 8th Avenue, Wilton Manors. First, I want to thank Leisure Services for all the tremendous hard work they've been doing at the 811 property. The grass is looking great, and we can't wait till the fence gets opened so our dogs can run around and create all havoc and have fun. So thank you, Patrick, for that. The second thing, I served on the Community Affairs Advisory Board, and earlier this evening was the Island City Spirit Award that was noted. It was actually an issue that I brought to the Community Affairs Advisory Board, authored, researched, and then had brought to the Commission, which the Commission then had me present and vote on it to accept actually and authorize the board at the time to proceed on, and I'm glad that they have been doing it since that time. Skip Stadnick, who was a member of that board and a great volunteer of the city, given that the actual award kind of belongs now to the City Commission and not CAB, but CAB follows it out, I'd like for the City Commission to think about maybe sending a recommendation to CAB to rename it and somehow encompass Skip Stadnick's name into the name of it, who was on the board at that time. And I say that as somebody who was the former chair and author of that award. And I would also ask maybe it be done every other year, not on election years. That was also the original intent, to ensure that that award never was used for political purposes to highlight somebody or their candidacy. The main reason for my being here is the Human Rights Campaign, the 2008 Municipality Quality Index is coming out, and you will lose points this year. You will lose points this year, and I say this as an individual who serves in the county's Human Rights Board, because under the county's Human Rights Act, there is actually an exemption that was done back in the 90s as a compromise with the Catholic Church, which I'll read a provision. The provision concerning employment discriminatory practices, it applies also to public accommodation and housing, that relate to sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression shall not apply to any religious school, religious institution, religious association, or religious organization. So right now the HRC will be subtracting points from every city score where your Human Rights Act would be applicable in dinging points for religious exemptions. I'm working to hopefully get the county to strike that language, but I would ask that this City Commission bring forward a resolution to the County Commission asking that this language be removed because it just smacks against the values here in this county. There are already federal laws that would take care of this. This language is redundant, it's offensive, it doesn't belong in there, and it's just time for it to go. As an example, Mercer Hospital, Catholic hospitals are rejecting transgender patients who are seeking transgender procedures. One such hospital here in Broward County has already done that. So if you're an LGBT person and you decide to go to Holy Cross or any other religious hospital, beware. You may be legally discriminated against, especially in this era of Trump. And if I could just give this to the Vice Mayor Flippin, who actually has signed these sections.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Paul or anyone? All right, coming up.
My name is Paul Kuda, and I reside at 500 Northeast 28th Street in Wilton Manors. I first wish to commend the Leisure Services Department for again hosting the annual canoe race in difficult weather conditions this past Saturday, and celebrating the 71st anniversary of the incorporation of the Village of Wilton Manors and its legal separation from the City of Fort Lauderdale. The recent heavy rains have resulted in ponding throughout our city and reflect the challenge in maintaining our water drains. On tonight's consent agenda, I support the two resolutions to fund the slip lining of one sewer pipe and 4 stormwater drains in our city. In the United States, there are an average of 657 water main breaks each day, including on Bob Broward Boulevard this past Saturday. With the support of the City Commission, Wilton Manors maintains its infrastructure. Under new business on tonight's agenda, I support the lien reductions of some $315,000 on the failure by Invitation Homes to renew the rental licenses on the properties they own in Wilton Manors. I would charge them for the code staff costs of $7,800. My concern is if they would be required to pay these fines, they would just raise the rents on what are mostly single-family homes, including the one next door to me, which is rented by a nice young couple with a baby. Lastly, I wish to express my strong disappointment with the radical revision of the recently published Wilton Manors Business Directory. It reads too much as a gay guide to our city with inappropriate photos, too much focus on Wilton Drive, and too many factual errors. I thank the City Commission.
Thank you. There's some chairs up here if anybody wants to sit. I know you're standing for a while. That's right.
Try. My name is Boyd Corbin. I live at 12 Northeast 26th Street. The EPA and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection have both acknowledged that the rules of the Water Safety Act have not been followed by the people who test our drinking water. I was shocked to hear David Archecki, the director of the Wilton Manors Utility Department, say that the usual fire hydrants were not open during free chlorination due to costs to the city. It's incredible that we extend the annual amount of free chlorination time from 4 weeks to 10 weeks when chemicals spike to 6 times EPA safe levels just to save some money, since we buy our water from the city of Fort Lauderdale. Free chlorination is necessary to remove sludge and biofilm from our water lines caused by using chloramine as a disinfectant. If we don't open up fire hydrants, then all of that goes into our homes and we drink it. No, your little refrigerator water filter, which may make your water taste good, will not protect you from these chemicals. We pay double price water bills, yet you make us drink and bathe in contaminated water just so you can keep up the 5-year tradition of 6% annual city employee raises. You people are amazing. Here's what needs to be done. First, you need to tell residents what is in our green water and what they need to do to keep themselves safe. Next, you need to stop stealing millions of dollars from the utility fund and spend it on replacing water and sewer lines so we don't end up like Fort Lauderdale, which just had a major water line break last weekend, requiring many residents to boil their water before drinking it. Finally, you need to put pressure on our water vendor, Fort Lauderdale, to get them to add granular activated carbon filtration to the 5-ash water treatment plant. So far, renovating 5-ash has not made it to the list of priorities on their upcoming budget. We need to change that. On Friday, June 1st, my campaign for mayor is hosting a water rally at Mickle Park at 6 p.m., rain or shine. I will have a water expert who works with the Aaron Brockovich Foundation to explain how this is a national problem, and tell us how we can keep ourselves safe and healthy until our water supply is cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Public comment.
Sal Torre, 309 Northwest 20th Street. As president of the West Side Association of Wilton Manors, I strongly oppose the lien reduction request under new business, lien reduction of multiple properties owned by Invitation Homes. Invitation Homes was created by Blackstone Group to buy up pools of single-family homes. The Blackstone Group is the largest private equity firm with assets over $248 billion. The Blackstone Group bundles the rents together as a form of investment-grade asset that is then turned around and sold to investors. These securities are managed with investors in mind, not tenants, not neighbors, and certainly not communities. Blackstone's deep pockets are backed by $3.6 billion line of credit for the purpose of buying homes. 1,400 homes in Atlanta in a single day. In Phoenix, most neighborhoods have a Blackstone-owned home on just about every block. And by the amount of properties listed on this lien reduction request, Blackstone and Invitation Homes are no stranger to Wilton Manors. Today, Blackstone is the largest owner of single-family rental homes in the nation. The multiple properties listed on this lien reduction request have liens totaling over $314,000, which might sound like a lot. But to put that in comparison, a resident with modest assets of $500,000 compared to Blackstone's $248 billion, that $314,000 lien looks like 75 cents to an average resident of Wilton Manors. Liens do not accrue overnight. It takes months by code enforcement to get these cases to the special magistrate. Then months of neglect on the part of the property owner for them to reach such high amounts. Just looking at a sample of tenants' opinions of Invitation Homes, one can see that investment returns for their clients are a top priority, while tenants, communities, and municipal code regulations take a back seat. I myself, a year ago, complained to our city code department about an Invitation rental on Northwest 20th Street, and this was after previous complaints due to abandoned vehicles kept on the property. In the email, I stated, it appears that Invitation Homes has dropped the ball again. Northwest 20th Street is looking a bit abandoned lately and vacant. The tenants recently moved out and the property has not been maintained. I urge the commission to reject this request. Also, I just want to take a moment to congratulate John O'Connor for being selected for the Community Spirits Award. John serves as Vice President and Secretary of our association, and his volunteerism makes life just better on the west side and throughout the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? All right. Oh, coming up, Tim. Sure.
Tim Moffitt, 2616 Northeast 14th Avenue, Wilton Manors. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners, City Manager, and welcome guests. I want to respond to a letter sent to me by Mr. Paul Kuda, which was also copied to the City Manager. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Kuda for taking the time to type out a letter and to let me know his opinion about the directory. A lot of folks never would have taken the time to even do that. They would talk negatively about something like this, but then never take the next step. And Mr. Kuda did that, and I applaud him for that. I take this very seriously, and as the president of the Wilton Manors Business Association, I feel compelled to respond. Our goal as an organization was to publish a business directory and city guide to be given away for free, and to let residents and the many visitors to Wilton Manors have a guide to use when they decided where to dine or who to call for a product or service. Also, to read about our city's history, have a guide to our parks, and to see the many faces and facets of our island city. I think we did a pretty good job at accomplishing that goal. And after reading Mr. Kuda's letter several times, I can see how our guide can be looked at in another way from another viewpoint. I would like to address Mr. Kuda's concerns point by point, although I don't have a lot of time to do that this evening, but I want to cover a couple of those that he made. As far as Mr. Kuda's remarks about the directory reading too much as a gay guide to our city, I counted, and there are 4 pages that mention or refer to anything gay at all. That's 4 pages out of 96 pages, which is 4% of the directory. If you add in the full page ads of Hotspots, OutClick, and the LGBT Chamber, which are ads but do mention or imply gay, that number goes up to 8, which is 8% of the directory. But I can understand Mr. Kuda's view, and I respect that. Pages 18, 19, 22, and 23 do stand out. He referred to those in his letter. Maybe we could have chosen a different picture for the tea dance at Hunter's, but they really do, the pictures that we chose really do depict a typical Sunday evening at Hunter's. They're authentic. And truly, we as an organization never look to identify as anything else other than authentic, diverse, all-inclusive, and a business organization that supports area businesses in and around Wilton Manors. Another item Mr. Kuda points out is that there's too much focus on the Wilton Drive, and he references these pages in the book as well, and he is correct. Those pages do focus on the drive, but here again, it's only a few pages, and the reason that is because we conducted a Facebook survey where we asked people on Facebook, what are the top things you must do in Wilton Manors? And the top 8 were all things to do on Wilton Drive, not off the drive. So those pages all attribute to talk about the drive. As well as we talk about the restaurants on the drive. And what happened there is we focused on the drive for the purpose of these restaurants, so we felt that people would like us to separate those out, and anybody looking to dine on the drive would appreciate the fact that we put them as restaurants on the drive, because we also have another section, restaurants off the drive. So I will actually finish responding to Mr. Kuda in a letter, but I want to thank him very much, and I want to thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity tonight to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comment? Okay. Thanks very much, everybody, for all your comments. I will close the public comments provisions. And moving on to consent agenda, any items to be pulled? No? All right, is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Call the motion. Sorry? It's not on?
Vice Mayor Flippen,
Yes.
Commissioner Carson,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Mayor Resnick.
Yes. Thank you, and your item was approved, so you all can stay, you don't have to leave. But it'd be great if actually you stayed and saw your city commission in action, but if you'd like to leave, feel free to leave. Thanks.
Especially if you're standing.
Yeah, you can sit. You don't, yeah. Oh, actually, some of you can have a nice rest of your evening at home. Like, I'll see you around midnight when I walk the dog. All right. He's not here. All right. So we lost business folks and time to, okay. All right, so that's consent. We are up to item,
Quasi.
where are we?
No.
Ordinance.
C, 9 rather?
9.
Yep.
All right, quasi judicial public hearings, ordinance number 2018-007. Let me find, yeah, I got it, thanks. I guess first we'll have our city clerk read the ordinance.
Have the city clerk read the ordinance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I messed up the order.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, amending Article 20, District Regulations of the Unified Land Development Regulations of the City of Wilton Manors by specifically amending Section 20-020 entitled District Map to rezone the property located at 550 East Oakland Park Boulevard, Wilton Manors, Florida, from IL Limited Industrial to B3 General Business, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Mrs. Henderson, did you want to do an overview of the ordinance?
Sure. The city received an application from the owners of the property located at 550 East Oakland Park Boulevard to rezone the property from its current light industrial zoning to B3 to allow for a proposed aquatic center. For those that are not familiar with the property, it's often called the old Goodwill site on Oakland Park Boulevard, and it's been vacant for many years. The current owner proposes to renovate the existing building and to accommodate an indoor swimming pool and related facilities. This project was fully presented to the City Commission at your April 10th Commission meeting by staff, And subsequent to adopting the rezoning on first reading, a developer's agreement with the property owner was approved at the May 8th Commission meeting. This is second reading, and it is a quasi-judicial process.
All right. Why don't we have our city attorney give an overview and explain the process?
Thank you. Yes, as indicated, this is a quasi-judicial hearing which pertains to the fact that it is a site-specific rezoning for a specific piece of property. It is unusual in the sense that those people who are going to give testimony are going to be sworn in by me. The procedure will be the applicant typically makes a presentation, staff typically makes a presentation, witnesses who want to testify in support of the application are called next to testify, and then other members of the public who are opposed to the project typically are called to testify. So with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I would ask anybody who plans on testifying in this proceeding to please stand up and raise their right hand so I could swear them in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. First, we're going to start with the applicant presentation, and just come on up if you'd like to make a presentation, and state your name and address for the record, please.
Paul Kissinger, the consultant landscape architect from EDSA for the applicant. My office address is 1512 East Broward Boulevard, Suite 110, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33301. We've come before this commission twice for the first reading as well as for the developers agreement. We've been through the DRC process. We've been through planning and zoning. I think that this is a great example of compromise as we've come together to have the site plan approved by planning and zoning, working together to get a development agreement where we've been able to compromise with the needs of the city, the needs of the applicant. We think it's a wonderful facility for the community. It's a healthy kind of activity for the community that doesn't currently exist. And I'm happy to speak more specifics about the project if you'd like me to, but I think you're all very familiar with it, and I'll be certainly here available for questions. We have folks from the swim team that have been here on a number of occasions, and instead of having them all come up, I just say that we're all very excited about the opportunity for this being in Wilton Manors. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll allow our staff, if they'd like, to make a presentation.
Mayor, Commission, Roberta Moore, Community Development Services Director. If you would like a presentation, I do have one prepared, or I can briefly go over the request. The city manager did identify that this is a rezoning request to rezone the property from limited industrial to general business. As part of the application process through the Planning and Zoning Board, variance requests were also required. 9 of those 10 requests were approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. The one outstanding request for the variance was subsequently addressed in the developer's agreement that the City Commission had previously discussed and approved. The specific address of the property is at 550 East Oakland Park Boulevard, which is located just west of Northeast 6th Avenue along the south side. And it is the previous Goodwill thrift shop, which was the previous roller rink many, many years ago. So as part of the site plan, they're looking to renovate the existing building and add over 9,000 square feet of an addition for a total of 30,000 square feet, including a 50-meter indoor pool, bathrooms, locker rooms, a therapy pool, some flex space, a gift pro shop, patio, outdoor kitchen, rooftop deck area, office, as well as assembly space. Again, the location of the project. The surrounding properties, to the north is Oakland Park Boulevard, to the south is RM16 zoning district, to the east is limited industrial, as well as B3 general business, and to the west is multifamily RM16 as well as central business. When we analyzed the site plan, we did look at the compatibility and consistency of this project compared to the adjacent properties. Some analysis that we did go through as we were looking at the project, we had to make a determination as to what the use would be per our existing codes because a swim school or the nature of this business is not specifically identified. So we did have to classify it under 4 different categories when we were looking at the use itself as well as the parking regulations. Approval process, it went through the DRC, went through the Planning and Zoning Board, and it's subsequently been here before the City Commission for first reading, and this evening we are at second reading for the rezoning of the property. I went over the concurrent. I don't necessarily, unless you want me to go through the variances, we've gone through those previously.
This is just the rezoning, right?
Correct, it is just the rezoning. And then the developer's agreement that the City Commission did enter into with a change from the last time that it was heard, which addressed the hours of operation. We can briefly go over the site plan, but we've gone over that before as well. Staff is recommending approval of this, obviously along with the developer's agreement. So if you have any questions specifically for staff, I'm here. The applicant is here also.
Okay. Before we take questions for the staff or applicant, I'm going to open up the public hearing. So anybody who's here who wishes to speak in support of the application can come forward, and we'd limit time.
No one was sworn.
No one was sworn.
Well, they could come forward and they can ask to be sworn in. So anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application can come forward. We'd limit your time to 3 minutes. Anybody? Okay. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application similarly can come forward and have 3 minutes. All right, I will close the public hearing. There were no questions or comments yet from the public, so probably no additional remarks from the applicant or the staff. So I will close the quasi-judicial proceeding. First, disclosures of ex parte communications from the City Commission. Anybody need to make any disclosures?
Just that I've had in-person and phone conversations with the applicant, including a few months ago, I want to say, at this point, a site visit to the property itself.
Okay. Anybody else? Julie?
Yes, I've had phone conversations and visits with the applicant, Mr. Kissinger, and I believe that's it, sir.
Okay.
Same thing, Mr. Applicant and Mr. Kissinger, we had a meeting here in the City Hall.
I did as well, but it was a long time ago, and after my comments at that first meeting, we did not consider it beneficial to keep talking, I guess.
All right, I also met with the applicant and also discussed the project with the city staff, so, and I have visited the site as well. Do we need to read the ordinance again? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Jumped right out. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion from the commission? Commissioner Green?
I just want to publicly confirm that we are voting solely on rezoning for this piece of property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then I certainly will be able to support this project. No, I will be able to vote for the rezoning of this property. The particular project I still think is unwise in its location and the project itself. But since we are only talking about zoning, I have no problem, and I hope the city will soon look at any other rezoning involving any industrial zoning that remains in the city, and particularly in this area.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes, I had some concerns at the last meeting, but for what we're doing tonight, I think it's the right thing to do for that piece of property.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I too believe that this is the right thing to do for this particular parcel. I do appreciate the comments of my colleague, Commissioner Green, relative to the rezoning. I spoke on record at our previous meeting that we as a commission need to join with our staff and really look at our corridors of need, this being on one of them, as we go through our rezoning, so as to plan properly for the future redevelopment of those corridors and balancing both development and the issues of residential concerns. And I think moving this forward and the approval of this ordinance is perhaps the beginning in that, that larger puzzle that we're trying to piece together.
Thank you. Do you have anything? Just one comment. Actually, a question first for staff. Is the development agreement entered into the evidence as part of this record?
It is not, but it is specifically referenced in the ordinance.
I would actually ask that it be entered into the evidence as part of this hearing tonight.
We can make sure a copy is made part of the record.
Thanks. And then I support the project with the conditions that were contained in the development agreement. I support the rezoning to B3 with those conditions, and I think it's a great project for Wilton Manors for that area, and this property will serve our community better as a B3 business with the conditions of the development agreement. So with no further comment, call the motion.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Mayor Resnick?
Yes. Thank you. That was quick. Thank you. Have a good night. Next, we have an ordinance on first reading. If the clerk will read that, please.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, amending ordinance 2017-004, extending the moratorium on the issuance of building permits, development orders, and business tax receipts for the installation of or sitting of any wireless facility as defined under Section 337.4017B Florida statutes and wireline backhaul facilities in any public rights-of-way within the City of Wilton Manors for an additional 180 days, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, second by Commissioner Newton. Mrs. Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance authorizes a 180-day extension to the current moratorium to allow additional time for the city to develop appropriate development standards and regulations related to the siting of wireless facilities within the public rights-of-way.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the City Commission? I'll just put on the record, the City of Pompano Beach voted tonight to extend their moratorium another 3 months. And Martin County actually voted in last month to extend their moratorium another year. So we are not doing anything unusual with respect to local governments extending their moratoria with respect to processing applications for these facilities. All right. Just want that reflected in the record. Any other comments or discussion from the City Commission? Call the motion.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Mayor Resnick?
Yes. There's no unfinished business. Reports from boards and administrative officials. City Manager's report. All right. City Attorney report.
Just one other point of information regarding the gun litigation. In case you're not aware, Broward County filed their own lawsuit up in Tallahassee as well. And also the lawsuit filed by Weston and others was recently joined by several other municipalities.
Right. Okay. My understanding is that we don't have to get too far into it, but that they'll probably, all the cases will probably be consolidated. Because some are pending down here, others are pending in Tallahassee.
Without getting into specifics, there have been discussions about that.
Okay. Anything else for the City Attorney's report?
No, sir.
Then we have the lien reduction requests for multiple properties. So we'll turn this over to Mrs. Henderson, the City Manager.
Invitation Homes has submitted applications for lien reductions on 23 properties that have accumulated liens totaling $314,500 for violations related to the failure to renew residential rental licenses. Those properties are all now in compliance, and I believe there is a representative here from Invitation Homes.
Is a representative of the applicant here? Yes, come on up, identify yourself for the record, please. And you're not on the timer, so you don't need to activate the timer for this.
Hi, my name is John Clark. I'm actually the portfolio director with Invitation Homes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your last name.
Sorry, John Clark. I just recently started overseeing the homes here in Wilton Manors and went to renew our 2017 BTRs, only to come to find out after speaking with not Julio, but Leslie, Lori upstairs, probably not even still getting the name right, but she told me that my predecessor never paid 2016, so kind of panicked, but I got all of the BTRs paid up, not including the liens, of course, and it got them to Julio in a very timely manner, as quickly as possible. Kim Olinka, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing her last name correctly.
Correct.
She did drive by the homes. There was only 3 homes that had some issues with them. 2 was just cutting the landscaping, got that done in a matter of a day. The third one, just the black asphalt driveway was crumbling a little bit, so totally had it removed, spent over $10,000 and putting in a new concrete driveway, and also resodding the grass and everything, just to try to show that, you know, it was all, the whole incident was just a minor oversight, well, major oversight on my predecessor and everything, for a merely $50 application fee that I have no idea how in the world she overlooked that, especially over a year's worth of time. Fortunately, she is no longer with us, which is a good thing on our behalf. Sitting down, listening to the public comments of a couple of neighbors, obviously it took me by surprise. I almost started to cry. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? If anybody, just note, if anybody is a neighbor of one of my homes, please feel free to come up to me afterwards, and if you have an issue, I am here. I'm only right down the street, so like I've told Julio and Kim, if there's ever an issue, I'm less than a mile away. I run up and down Wilton Manors almost every single night. I love this community. I do try to drive by my homes, though I oversee about 1,600, so it's not an everyday opportunity that I can drive by the homes, but I'm here. I do apologize for the oversight for not renewing the BTRs. Again, as soon as I found out, quickly got them paid. Been in constant contact with Julio almost every single week till whenever I found out about this. So I think that's pretty much all I have at the moment.
All right. Thank you. Let's take questions for the applicant. I just had one question. You said there was, before we get into something you said that one of the homes had a driveway that needed to be repaired, basically, or replaced. Did you pull permits for that?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Just checking. All right.
And you had the utilities.
That was it. That was my only
out,
question.
and everything was inspected and done by the book.
Questions from the City Commission? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Clark, I appreciate you being here, and I can appreciate your candor and honesty before us. When I reviewed all of the documents and materials, I was a little left scratching my head, and I need you to be candid with me. I mean, other than what I deem to be possibly corporate negligence on behalf of the company that you represent, with regards to failure to do the BTRs, I didn't understand what the great hardship was, other than your own company's employee didn't do their job. And so for me, as a policymaker and a commissioner, I'm trying to find the hardship and the justification in the accruals of the fines that you have before you. So I'd like you to address that, and I'd like you to speak to what you would be willing to settle with us, perhaps on a number, because there's absolutely no way that I can just say, oh, we understand, so sorry, so bad, and just have you walk away free and clear, so to speak. I think that there does need to be some amends that needs to be made. So,
let me just quickly point out, I'm not expecting to walk away free and clear.
Okay.
When I speak on behalf of Invitation Homes. Unfortunately, I wish I could speak on behalf of the person that was in charge. I'm being upfront and honest. I have no idea how in the world she overlooked this. If she was here, I would ask her. If the moment I found out, I would ask her, but unfortunately, she's not with us. I honestly don't have a clear answer. All I can prove to you is that, or show you is that you can ask Julio. As soon as I became aware, I was getting 2017 paid on time, and which is whenever I found out about 2016 not getting paid. I oversee Weston, Wilton, I'm already here in Manors, Weston, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Plantation, Sunrise, Tamarack. I take care of all of those cities, all of our homes. I oversee 1,600, about to get jacked up to about 2,200. I can handle it. This was, I'm not lessening not the crime, but the negligence of my predecessor. But I can definitely ensure that there should be no more issues. Again, I think I've shown to Julio that, I did take this very seriously. I was on top of it every single minute. As soon as I found out at the beginning of this year, I got everything to him the very last day, which was a major task, but I did it. This was all the work of one person. Again, I can't say how sorry I am.
Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Green?
Was it just your predecessor? I thought I'd heard it was two predecessors.
No.
No?
There was
just
only
one?
One.
Okay.
My partner, believe it or not, actually oversaw the properties here in 2015. Julio knows him very well. Everything was paid. As soon as we rearranged our portfolios, areas that we oversaw in South Florida, Mrs. Wallace, that's her last name. For her sake, I won't mention her first name. As soon as she took over, I don't know what in the world she did, but then I took over the very latter part of 2017, and I won't bore you with repeating the story again from the moment I found out.
Another
This was
question.
One person.
Do you think by a corporation owning this many homes in a city, it helps the community, it helps the municipality?
I mean, absolutely. We screen all of our residents. We help to improve the properties. Contrary to some people's belief, you can't make everybody happy, but I'm here to try to make everybody happy. We do have the money to upgrade the property, keep it maintained. I know homeowners who don't take care of the properties. I know that we have renters that don't take care of the properties, but if we get a violation, such as the ones that Kim brought to my attention, I got on it right away. We do have the funds to pay. I don't think that means that, everybody should have the money.
You don't want necessarily to have to do
Hey,
so,
they
right.
got the money, they can spend it, let's do it. A lot of HOAs are like that, unfortunately. That's a different story. We're constantly looking at the market. We're active with the communities. We keep up with the businesses and everything. We're trying to bring in qualified people. We do screen all of our residents, nobody with a felony over more than 6 years, or within the last 6 years. We do screen everybody, but unfortunately, yeah, you can't screen for everything. Personality, I wish we could for that one. But that's all I got. I'm sorry.
Well, no more questions, but I have to make a comment. When you made your comment that soon you'll be overseeing over 2,000 homes in Broward County, that just demoralizes me, particularly when I hear that there are no homes available to purchase for a reasonable price in Wilton Manors. And to me, this is one of the reasons. I'm just disappointed with this whole situation.
Well, whenever we price our homes, we don't just put a number out there. We all have to be real estate. We all have to have our real estate licenses. We have access to the MLS. We do compare similar homes within the same street if possible. If not, we go out a little bit further within the same neighborhood. Again, we don't just go and put in a dollar figure and say, oh, we're just going to jack it up 15, 25%. That's not how we do things. People are smart. They can look on Zillow. They can look to see, 1, 2, 3, 4 Maple Street is going for this rate, whereas in, so, I mean, they're smart. They know what they're doing. We're not going to just jack it up just so we can make money. Joe Schmo can go and lease that one. Why would he pay, if we had ours $100 more, why would he come to ours and pay $100 more when he can just go right next door and rent this home?
So does this mean you sell homes as well, or you just
No,
rent?
we're just in a market to rent our homes.
Okay, thanks.
Teetering back on one of your questions, what am I looking for?
Mm-hmm.
If I was in your chair, in your shoes, yeah, penalize me. It was, whenever I said, I speak not only for myself, I speak for Invitation Homes. We messed up. Mrs. Wallace speaks for Invitation Homes. We need to be penalized. I'm serious about that. 315,000, that is a lot. But I would be very happy maybe if we could knock it down 75%. I believe the first gentleman, you, sir, I liked your recommendation. I think I heard that correctly and everything. I'd definitely fine us. We messed up. I'm just being brutally honest. But hopefully you can speak with Mr. Davila. But I'm here. I'm right down the street. If there's an issue, he's got my number. Kim has my number. Nothing. I don't think there's been an issue at all since I've been overseeing the homes and everything.
Julie?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, thank you for being here, and I know it's not always easy, but this helps us. I have a couple of questions. I want to get back on, the mayor asked about the concrete driveway that, or you mentioned, and he talked about it. You did get a permit. You said, is everything final on that permit?
Yes. Yeah.
Everything's been completed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was inspected. We even had to get, I guess it was the utilities coordinator who
Okay, as long as
checks
it's
for the
complete
easements.
and not open at this time.
Everything's good.
One of the biggest thing that concerns me is the checks and balances, and we all have checks and balances. Your predecessor, obviously, the buck didn't stop with her, that she probably got notice, but Invitation Homes Corporate probably got notice.
There you go.
So it's very unusual in a business that size, at least from my perspective, to have just one check. And what you've just mentioned about yourself is you're taking responsibility for all of these homes now, and your word, and I trust that you're being upfront with us, but you're going to be over 1,600 homes. What is your current check and balance? How do you know on these 1,600 when your rental license is due, when you have to have an inspection, if you have an alarm in the house? I know some of your homes have alarms. When you have a pool, what's your check and balance now? How are we going to, when you're gone or something, God forbid, happens, how's the next person going to take over?
I do have an answer for that. We did just merge with another company. I can say that because it's public knowledge now. With that, we are restructuring, which is also the reason why I'm kind of jumping up to overseeing a little bit over 2,000 homes. I do have a team in place. My team is growing. So I have more people that are responsible for different aspects of managing the homes. I actually do have one person that is in charge of ensuring that the BTRs are paid for all the city municipalities. They are in charge of recording and following up with any sort of HOA or municipal violations as we receive them. We do have a software where everything gets uploaded. We notify the residents in a timely manner.
That's a current, or that's what you're going to have?
I actually have that person in place right now.
But
Just
the
for my
software and the...
Yes. Yeah. Salesforce is the platform that we use right now for that.
Has that always been in place?
It has, but we haven't been using it at its full capacity.
Okay.
But with the merge with this other company, we've been making some changes and everything. So, and again, I have a bigger support staff. So I actually have one person that just looks at my particular portfolio rather than one person looking at all of South Florida.
Without getting in your business practices, which I appreciate you sharing some of them, my big concern is this shouldn't have happened.
Right.
It did happen. I don't hear you saying that you've got, you know your 1,600 homes, your 2,000 homes, you know everyone in Wilton Manors and when everything is due on a checklist that spits out every morning. That's the kind of thing that concerns me because we could be here again in a year. So I appreciate your dedication, and I hope that's going to be the case. I'm willing to forgive certainly some of the lien, but I just want to make sure that there's not just one check and balance. We've got to have a system so that I don't want you coming back.
I don't want to be back either.
So I'm not exactly sure where the other commissioners are going to fall, but I will reduce it some. And I hope that your team gets itself in order because this shouldn't happen at this level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I think some of us have some questions for code enforcement, so if Julio could come up. You can have a seat, Mr. Clark, if you'd like.
Julio Dalla, Code Compliance Supervisor. Hello.
So my questions were just in terms of reviewing these properties. You obviously have visited all of the properties that... Are these all the properties that are owned by this entity in the city, or are these just the ones that didn't have the registrations?
Well, yeah, just for the purpose of the record, it was the violations were a result for residential rental licenses, not for business tax receipts. Yeah, no problem. But I believe these are most of the homes owned by Invitation Homes within our city. I don't have the exact count, but I believe it's probably most of them, if not like 80 or 90% of them. Out of the ones that we inspected, we did catch a couple that had violations. The applications were originally submitted in January, which is the reason why they're here before you now, because we did wait until they came into full compliance, had the permits, and had the permits closed prior to bringing them forward.
Okay. So generally, when you were visiting the properties, so you visited all of them, you said?
All the ones that were
you had to
applied.
conduct inspections as part of the license?
Correct, sir.
So you didn't notice any other code violations? For the most part, you said a few were corrected, but in terms of generally for the properties, they were generally in compliance, landscaping, debris, maintenance, things like that?
Yeah, we inspected all as part of the lien reduction process. We inspect every property that submits a reduction. So out of all of them, we did inspect all of them, and there were only those couple he mentioned that were in violation.
Okay. You had some questions?
Yes. When they went to the special magistrate and then you had to send out letters to the owners, it didn't just go to the property manager, did it? Didn't it go to the corporate too?
Yeah, all properties that are owned by a commercial entity, which would be in the case with all of their homes, are typically sent to the registered agent on the corporate documents, as well as any mailing address that they have registered in Broward County property appraisers.
And when I went to school for code. That's what I remember. That's what I make sure that happened because, this gentleman here, I feel bad for you coming in your position you're in, but even if that woman that was here got it, so did corporate. So
Right.
where did the cracks fall there too? I mean, that's the problem I'm having, not with your situation, but for
It's a huge
the bigger,
corporation.
yeah. I mean, somebody else failed too, and so I just want to make sure that we did send it to both that we should have, and we did. So okay.
Through our process at the special magistrate hearings, we show that we received service to the entities that are required to in each of the individual cases.
And all of these properties are owned, they're owned by different legal entities for the most
Well,
part?
they're all owned by Invitation Homes, but I guess for tax purposes or what have you, each one has a different name.
An LP or an LLC?
Yeah, IH2 or IH3 homes, and things like that.
Well, that's then also, the liens then would attach to that property and that owner, so that if there's 1,600 homes in Broward County, they're not attached on all the 1,600 homes, they're only attached to the homes owned by that individual entity.
I'll let the city attorney get that one.
Mr. Mayor, under Chapter 162, if we record a code lien as a violation against a particular piece of property in Wilton Manors that's owned by ABC Corporation, it attaches to every single property owned by ABC Corporation within the county.
But just that corporation?
Correct.
Yeah, so.
Change corporation.
So how are we, so the $315,000, do we know how many different properties, liens that represents?
I do not, just for everyone's sanity. I tried to just bring it into one and create a spreadsheet and not go into each individual entity or the, I mean, they are in the backup and they are in the orders that eventually became liens.
So what's going to be your intention if the decision of the city commission is to reduce it to, let's just say $100,000, and it represents, I don't know how many different properties, 23 different properties.
We'll have a lot of...
How are you going to figure out which property to reduce how much of the lien?
Well, yeah, that's why I brought just,
Do a percent on each piece of property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps.
We can figure that out. I mean,
Yeah, we could figure the math out. I believe the average, is around 17,000 or so. But, whether we do it to one or to several, the amount, the math will still come out to the same.
All right.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What's easier for the city? I would like to know. I mean, maybe you may not know, but city manager or the city attorney maybe might know what's easier for.
Well, if the commission is considering reducing by a percentage, we could reduce each property by that corresponding percentage. If you're looking at a lump sum, we would probably ratio that out by the 23 properties.
Can we, though, contingent, make, like, how we say it has to be paid within 30 days or so, or else the lien goes back to full amount?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can we do that for all of the properties?
Yes.
Okay. Last question is, what was the staff amount incurred on this?
I believe it was $7,800. $7,804.13 was the total amount accrued between all the properties at an average of $339.31 for each one. Because it was a type of violation that doesn't take any more time on one necessarily than the other. This is just inspecting city records to see whether or not they paid their licenses or they had obtained them. It didn't, result in inspecting the properties up until we reached the point of the applications.
Okay. Any other questions, or Julie?
Yeah, I want to, again, dovetail on what the mayor said. How many properties does an Invitation Homes entity, I3, IH4, whatever the entity name is, own in Wilton Manors? And if we don't, you should know, I guess, if you've got your tickler system going. I'd like to know how many that are not on this list, because I want to make sure they have their licenses, and I don't want to forgive any of these liens unless we have assurances that everyone...
I believe it's part of the good work that Community Development Services does and Leanna Checky does, in going through them. These are the ones that were sent to us that had not renewed their licenses. So if there were other ones that had not renewed them, we would have probably received them and followed the same process.
Unless they just purchased the home and you wouldn't have known, unless they purchased it and just finished rehabbing it. And my concern is there are probably more out there.
You mean unregistered?
That are
Okay, yeah,
unregistered.
because these are for renewals, but I see your point,
Right,
yes.
there are probably some that have not ever been registered, and that's what I want to know, that list, and all of the entity names of owners who own property in Wilton Manors.
Perhaps as a condition, like the mayor was requesting, we could do that, and Mr. Clark can provide us that list, and we can verify that all the properties owned by them indeed have a residential rental license with the city.
Correct, and also if you're going to, obviously if they have that if they don't have the residential license, then I would be concerned about their compliance with other code matters.
As part of the process, we would be inspecting those homes as well.
That's my big concern, and I would like to make sure that that's a part of any motion that comes up.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify for the applicant, if you can just come up for 1 second. What you were requesting, 75% reduction or reduction to 75%?
Sorry, a 75% reduction.
Because you have $315,000 in liens, a 75% reduction would be to $78,750 plus staff time, or a reduction to 75% would be $236,250 plus staff time.
So probably the lesser, I would imagine.
The lesser, yeah, obviously.
Just trying to clarify, it's...
I understood.
All right, so does anybody want to make a motion?
Well, I would ask a question.
Oh, you had a question?
Yeah, how many homes do you have, not that are coming here tonight, how many homes do you have in Wilton Manors, your company?
I was just going to teeter on that. Julio, if you remember back whenever I first tried to pay 2017, I came in with a spreadsheet and had said, here's what each check goes for. We have a total of 26 homes, and they did check to make sure we actually came up with the spreadsheet.
Okay.
All the homes are within Wilton Manors. The only homes you need to be concerned about are all up to date. All BTRs have been paid.
So there are 3 of them that are not on this list.
Right. Yes. Well, there's a little bit more than that. No.
Well,
I'm
there's
sorry.
23 on this
23. Yes,
list.
there's 3 that are not on the list that were.
And if you have that spreadsheet, if you could we would love a copy of it, because I'd like to know the owners, because I want to make sure that I trust that what you're saying is true, but I don't believe it right now.
You can have this one if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're all single-family homes. They're not condos or duplexes or...
The majority of them are single-family homes. There is one community where they are
8th Avenue
condos.
Northeast 8 is an Invitation Homes, townhouses there.
Northeast 8th Street Avenue, sorry.
Do you lease these for short-term rentals?
Say that one?
Do you lease them for short-term rentals?
No.
They're all...
Everybody has to start off with a 1-year lease, and then every time they renew, the lowest lease that they can renew by law, anyway, has to be 6 months.
Okay. Are any of your homes under the Broward County Section 8? I can't remember the housing authority.
We do accept a lot of, we do have a lot of housing participants that rent our homes. We work with Broward County, Deerfield Beach.
Right. So don't they do inspections though as part of the rental of those homes?
Not every single one. They do an initial inspection. But
no, the city.
And sometimes Broward is, I'll say they're a little bit behind sometimes. They do have a lot to deal with. They're supposed to do an annual one. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or?
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted the questions. We've learned a lot. Anyone want to make a motion with respect to the application?
I would just like to make a comment that whatever percentage people deal with, I would like any of the city expenses to be added back.
I think I think everyone's on the same page with respect to that.
We're working off the total,
Well, like I said, a 75% reduction would be $78,750 plus the $7,800 in expenses.
How about a 50%?
50% reduction would be, I could do that, right?
I only mentioned that because the other one sounded bad.
It's 150 a month and half of the 14, so 7, so 157 some?
$157,500.
That's off by 5.
did you add the,
Plus 7804
61.
would be,
161
$165,304.
165?
Does anyone want to make a motion to that amount?
That's,
Excuse me, it would be easier if you did a percentage.
Percentage, right.
Plus
okay.
100% of the staff costs.
Okay, got it, so then you can divide it all up
Because we have a
by,
list on page
right.
311 of the agenda.
Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion to reduce the pending liens by 50% plus 100% of staff costs?
So moved.
Does anyone want to second that?
Yeah.
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead. Second.
Okay.
Okay, discussion on that?
Amendment to
Oh,
that?
sure. Well, you made the motion, you can change
No,
it.
I seconded that.
No, you made the
Oh,
motion.
no,
you made
sorry.
the motion.
I'm so sorry. I want to add a period of time,
Oh, yeah.
30 days or 60 days.
What's the time period you would need to pay it?
I can have it within a week.
All right, 30
30 days?
Yeah.
And do we need to have any other conditions? Obviously, if it's not paid within
No.
that time, the lien will
We're good,
revert
go up, back up to full amount.
back up to the full amount.
Yep.
We got it.
and just to comment on that motion, if that's the final motion, I would be much less likely to vote for this if there had been liens based on all kinds of terrible things like, right. Abandoned cars and lots of things. It is primarily paperwork, and so, I don't feel like you've trashed the neighborhood, so...
Which is why I was kind of just one last ditch effort. I was really hoping for the 75%. The court cost, obviously, don't count that into the percentage, tack that on the end. If I could get 75%, I mean, that's still a lot for, I'm not trying to demean the cost, but from a mere, it's not as if we were, like you said, we were trashing homes. This was just merely some not right person
But it's a
paying
question.
a simple $50 annual renewal license.
We hear you, we understand. I just had a question for either the city manager or code, I'm not sure, but will we incur additional expenses in terms of releasing all of these liens?
Yes.
So any idea, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Any idea what the filing fee to release all these liens is going to cost us?
Those have been calculated into the estimated staff costs.
Oh, the 7,800 includes that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Justin?
So for clarification, it's 50% of the total amount, 100% of staff-related costs.
Correct.
Yes.
Paid within 30 days.
Paid within 30 days. There's a motion and a second to that effect. Any further discussion from the commission? I would just say, sir, and I understand where you're coming from, and I do appreciate your coming here and being so forthright and staying till the end of a meeting. But in addition to the paperwork, as you refer to it, you heard before we gave an award to our code enforcement division, code compliance division. This took time away from them doing, other code work in the city. We have a relatively small staff. So when they're spending so much time inspecting your properties, making sure that they're in compliance, because they have to do inspections and making sure they're in compliance with all the paperwork,
Right.
that's time taken away from other work that they're doing in the city, working with other property owners to get their properties into compliance, et cetera. So it's more than just the dollars involved and the paperwork involved. It's a tremendous amount of our staff time that was dedicated to your 23 homes that could have been done other projects in the city. So I'm going to support the 50%, and but we do, value your partnership. I'm glad that you now have given contact information to our city staff so that if there are problems at any of your properties, they know how to reach somebody, because that's a real key part of the licensing aspect, is knowing who to contact in the event of emergencies.
Right. Exactly.
All right. All right, call the motion.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes.
Mayor Resnick?
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight. I know.
I'm not depressed.
Then we have fiscal year 2017-18 budget update from our finance director, I'm assuming. Thanks.
Are you ready, Paul?
Good evening, Bob Mays, Finance Director. This report is as of April 30th. It's 7 months into the fiscal year. So on page 474 of your backup, you'll see a chart like this.
Great.
And then on the next few pages, you'll see a much more detailed chart that looks like this. So the same information, but just in much more detail. By the end of April, we typically receive about 90 to 95% of the ad valorem tax revenue that the city gets budgets for the year. And you'll see that this year we've received 94%. You'll look at the upper left-hand corner to see those revenues. And for the general fund overall, we've received 82% of the budgeted revenues. We're ahead of the curve for all categories of revenues, with the exception of utility taxes and intergovernmental revenues. And both of those have substantial revenues that we receive in arrears. So they catch up in 1 month or 2 months. So we're still in good shape with those revenues also. Building permit revenues are the star of the budget, the general fund budget. They're already at almost 100% of the budget. That's due to 2 factors. One, we did increase the building permit fees this year, but also we've seen a very strong economy, and building permit activity has been very strong. People are remodeling and they're doing new construction. That's been very significant. If you look down a little bit further to the middle of the page, you see expenditures listed by department. This time of the year, we would expect about 58% of our expenditures to have been made. Since we make our contribution to the pension plan at the beginning of the year, that kind of skews that percentage a little higher. So taking the pension contribution into account, most departments you'd expect to have spent 63% of their budgets, and the police department, since it has such a high pension expenditure, you'd expect it to be about 67%. And you see that all the departments, all the budgeted departments are in good shape in terms of the percentage of expenditures. Non-departmental expenditures are at 66%. That's because they include the large debt service payment we make on the City Hall bond. So that's a significant portion of that. So the general fund overall is at only 58% of budget at this time, instead of we would expect 63%. So our expenditures are in good shape. After Hurricane Irma, we created the emergency disaster relief line item. And that, of course, wasn't budgeted since we didn't know Hurricane Irma was going to come. As of April 30th, there were expenditures of $191,000 in that line item. And then tonight, you approved the expenditures for Tetra Tech. That bumps it up a little bit more.
Where are you, Bob? Just so I can... You're at 475 or...
The chart on 474 In the middle of the page, you see emergency disaster relief on the left.
Yeah, 191,915.
Got it, thank you.
Okay? There will be more expenditures. We still do not have all of our invoices from the city of Fort Lauderdale. You know, we staged our debris there. They ground the debris. They trucked it to the final disposal site. So we're still waiting to get those invoices. But the good news on all that debris removal is that FEMA is going to reimburse us at 90% and the state of Florida at 5%. We also found out recently, and I'll be bringing an agreement to the city manager. They have a program wherein they're going to reimburse us an additional 4% as a reimbursement for our administrative costs. So we're very fortunate to be getting strong reimbursements from FEMA.
But the timing of that, will that come this fiscal year?
We hope so, but with FEMA, there's no way of predicting that.
But don't you also have to account for it because they call back funds if they're audited 5, 6, 10 years down the road?
Absolutely. After we close out the project, which can take over a year or more, we have to retain all those records for an additional 5 years, and they can come back and do come back to audit all the records. That's one of the advantages of having the company Tetra Tech, who did the debris monitoring. They're like an insurance policy that the big expenditures we made for debris removal were done properly and according to FEMA regulations.
Okay.
So looking towards the bottom of the page at all the other funds, we've talked about the general fund and it lists all the other funds there. Recycling fund and fire fund are both on track. You can see most of the fire fund revenues are received towards the beginning of the year, the same as ad valorem taxes. Road fund revenues are a bit low. That's because there will be a large appropriation from fund balance at the end of the year that'll cover various budgeted projects that will be done. And expenditures will rise as those projects are completed. Water and sewer revenues overall are a bit low due to a large appropriation again from the fund balance that will be made at the end of the year to fund those projects. Also, water consumption, as I reported at the last quarter, has been very low for the first 6 out of 7 months of the fiscal year. So therefore, our revenues are a little bit lower also. Water and sewer expenditures are on track, and year to date, we've spent over $1.26 million improving the water and sewer infrastructure of the city. Very significant investment.
Yeah, where's he now?
Can the minutes reflect that? No, seriously, I would like the minute. I know that this is a
I'm not kidding.
general presentation, but can the minutes reflect how much we've spent on capital projects for water and sewer infrastructure?
Year to date, over $1.26 million. That's out of an overall budget in the water and sewer fund of
$12,200,000.
Oh, it's a lot.
$12 million, yeah,
Right.
10%. Drainage revenues are a little bit low. Nothing to be too concerned about, I don't think. And then the remaining funds, miscellaneous grants funds and the police funds, they don't follow. They're very small and they don't follow the regular. I did skip over parking. It shows, overall revenue shows 52%, but operating revenues are already at 74%. And in fact, the month of March was the all-time record revenue month for parking. We got over $96,000 in revenue from parking in March. March is always the busiest month for parking revenues. I guess the tourists are having one last party before they go north.
Did we? When did we open? I'm trying to remember when we opened the new lot.
The new lot was opened on April 14th.
Not until April.
So we have a half month, but that lot has been very heavily used.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, that's a good
And
location.
it's been surprising. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are busy nights, but so are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's showing really good participation from the public.
Good.
All right, I'll tell you what, any questions for Bob on finance?
Thank you, Bob.
We look forward to the next report. Thank you. Thank you. All right, that was fiscal year. We added a item about the
Yes,
Orange
Orange County guns.
campaign, the gun violence campaign.
Yes, Mayor. Just as we've engaged with every town has a Wear Orange campaign, and that is held on Saturday, June the 2nd. I know you had mentioned in your proclamation it was June 1st, but I'm on their
they're changing
website
it?
right now, and Saturday, June 2nd is the nationwide Wear Orange campaign awareness day.
Okay.
I would just ask for consensus by this commission for us to engage.
Can we get confirmation that that's the actual day and not the first? 'Cause-
I'm here on the website right now, everytown.org.
As you said, the first is the reason I was...
Yeah, and it was in the proclamation.
Yeah,
I thought
that's
she
why-
said that too up there.
Well, that was, no, I don't know what she said, but Saturday, June 2nd is the nationwide day, according to every town. Regardless, and whether it be June 1st, June 2nd, or both, I would just ask for consensus by each of you as my colleagues that we engage in awareness at our staff discretion, social media. Obviously, individually, we do what we can to promote the wearing of orange for the advancement of the cause. Any
Well, I have no objection.
problems with that?
Yep. As long as it's not going to involve staff time to do something on a Friday or Saturday, right?
No, I'm not asking to necessarily hold an event. I mean, it's at their discretion, but I definitely would love to see us have some level of participation and awareness, social media and or otherwise.
Ms. Manager, do you have any concerns or any?
No, we can definitely, especially with social media, participate in promoting.
Okay. There you go. All right, thank you. All right. Request for placement of items on next meeting agenda. We talked about one with the school board, ILA. Commissioner Carson?
Wanted to talk about possibly a resolution directed to Broward County objecting to the language in the human rights ordinance.
Yeah, I have no objection to pursuing that.
We could have that for the next, and we can certainly get someone to help draft.
All right.
And also, I really liked Michael's idea about the Skip Stadnick Community Volunteer Award, and I was wondering if we could offer that suggestion to CAB?
I'm fine with that. I'd
Definitely.
be happy to support that. We could. I mean, we can, but I would feel comfortable sending it to CAB since it's kind of their project and he was on CAB and just would like them to to consider it as well and make a recommendation.
Next week is send it to him.
Yeah.
Okay, so however we do it, I know you can let Johnny know since he's the...
It's a referral from
Oh,
the
there he
city,
is.
it's a referral from the city commission to the Community Affairs Advisory Board. And I know, I would totally support it, but let's see what they feel about it too.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah.
Right. All right,
Do we need a motion for that?
No.
Or without objection? Or?
without objection, we'll do it that way, unless anybody objects. Okay. Anybody else? Reports? Commissioner Green, you have any?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Couple of things I attended I want to mention and a couple that are coming up. On May 9th, we had a meeting with the MPO. It was attended by myself and the city manager and Todd DeJesus. And it was we were meeting because the MPO had called for projects from cities that they wanted to have funded. And, but I think probably 5 years from now. But the meeting was primarily to talk about the parameters and what could be done and what would be funded. And I think their only criticism to us was we were not asking for enough. And so we're, I think, now looking to see if we could come up with bigger, more expensive projects to ask for. Even to the point maybe we'll have to try to talk with neighboring cities to come up with a project jointly that would hit the mark, that would qualify. I think it's amazing it's easier to get $1 million from MPO than to get 10,000. So,
It has to be limited to transportation.
yeah, well, that as well. The next day was the MPO meeting, and I think I tell you, I get a kick out of voting to approve the 2045 Transportation Master Plan for Broward County. So I'll be looking forward to that completion. The next day, I took the Bright Line to Miami for a dedication of Miami Central Station. And nothing happened, no one was killed. It was a great event. And so I'm happy that it went off so well. But do take a ride. The cheapest tickets are gone now. It was just one weekend. But it's still, they have discount tickets. And you arrive there at Miami Central Station, which is a big building. And then you can Uber to all these wonderful restaurants in Miami. Or if you're someone like Commissioner Carson, you could jog a few blocks to one of these restaurants. Saturday, this past Saturday, I started off with an appropriate event. I watched Harry's wedding. Someone had to do it, and there were three. No. I was watching it with a TV watch party, and so there were appropriate food items and
beverages for you.
And beverages, and who wants tea? So we moved on to the champagne. Unfortunately, I missed some of the rain event in Wilton Manors as a result of that, and I'm certainly have to give credit to people who continued the race. I talked with Jack Seidler, and he said he almost drowned in the canoe because of the rain. Evidently, it was one of the heavy little downpours. But the event at Hagen was great, and it was good to see everyone. And as someone mentioned, it shows how important that race is to people that that crowd showed up on a day like that. Mm-hmm. So very impressive. That night, I was the sole representative to the...
The Broward League?
Yeah.
I was.
Well, why weren't you there for the swearing in?
I was. You didn't see me up there? I was
No.
the third person up there.
Boy. God. Well, now I
You
feel
missed
bad.
it. I have pictures to prove it.
Well, I want to see them.
Okay.
And it was amazing, though, how disorganized they were, because I kept checking, because I was told you would be there, and there were 8 tables checking people in, and they didn't keep any similar list. I mean, the lists were identical, and every which table you went to, they marked you off, and there was no master list anywhere. So you really couldn't tell who was there unless you ran into them, and I didn't. I apologize. So
I actually did see you there, because when we came in, you know, the room was huge, and we had to find our table, and your back was to the door, so and you were in
okay.
discussion. But
Well,
I actually went with Ruth Ann Stadnick. She was
well,
my
truthfully, if I'd known you were going, I would not have gone. So
Is that because of him, or?
no, because I just wanted the city representative, since I'm the alternate for the board.
guest. I was there for the swearing in.
Okay. I wish I'd been able to enjoy that moment.
That was good.
You know, this is being
No,
live
it's not
streamed.
being streamed or videotaped, so don't worry about it.
It is on...
Later. The archives.
No. Again, we were talking about this briefly.
How are they doing it, though? Not for our camera.
Well,
Anyway.
that, you've got a point. How could they be doing it if there's no camera? Anyway, this Thursday, I'm going to be attending with the city manager the Broward Leaders Climate Roundtable in Davie, and it's at a wonderful, wonderful venue out there. And
When is that?
That is this Thursday, and it's from like 9 to about 2 o'clock, so it's quite a program. But particularly what they're going to be trying to get is from each city some idea about what of the impacts of climate change cities are seeing, and what are some of the priorities that we're hoping everyone will look at. And again, I am especially happy that we did have that project that was approved recently on, I think it's 28th Street near 6th Avenue, where this new project, again, is going to be 4 stories high, but no housing on the ground floor, just garage. And they are also raising the seawall 2 feet, and I might add replacing some of it. And they've even worked on a solution to how they will maintain the emergency elevator generator and the fuel supply, worrying about flooding and pumping and things of that sort. I did want to mention, because I heard from 2 or 3 people that they had heard the quiet zone was on its way rapidly. And I would like to disappoint everyone by saying that's not happening. The quiet zone that has been established is the city of West Palm Beach. The city, that means 3 crossings. So there's the quiet zone for Southeast Florida. But they will finish up the rest of Palm Beach County, and then maybe we'll be reaching the point in Broward where the entire county will be designated at one time. And again, our holdup is the leg from Fort Lauderdale to the Dade County line. Also, I wanted to mention that I was very proud of the fact that I found out we now have a Wilton Manors police officer as a resident of Wilton Manors.
Oh, good.
And that's great for a couple of reasons to me. One is that it happened, and the other is we put some money in the police contract several years ago that they would be given a stipend. And I even checked with the officer to make sure that that was happening. And so I'm proud of that, and I hope that we can add some more to it because it's 3.
Oh, we have 3?
No, 3,000.
No, there's 3 police officers that live in Wilton Manors. One's been here for years. I know him very well. And then 2 more. So just let you know, there's 3.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Now you do. You learn something today.
Well, I only knew about the one because I saw the car. But, okay. Anyway, well, I'm glad that there's more than one. And finally, wish everyone a good and safe Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
I know the crowd's not here anymore, but remember 16th Avenue Bridge is closed for the next 60 days.
Yeah.
So if you try to go that way, like I did yesterday,
Really?
and it was closed, and then by the afternoon it was open again, but it's closed for good now for 60 days. So if you want to go towards 26th and 16th and go north, you cannot for the next 2 months. I want to give kudos to the staff for Saturday for moving everything from the Richardson Park to Hagan Park. Everybody did a good job, even Patrick. Did all right. But I got to tease him, so. It was a great event. We were missing cake, though. We have cake every year. We didn't have cake this year. I was disappointed, but the cookies were good. And next time, if you could have someone there we had a little problem with someone in the audience, I think had too much to drink and kind of slowed things down a little bit. So I think next year might be a nice time to have somebody there. Because otherwise, it was a great event, and putting all those people inside that small room. And I agree with you, Commissioner Green. It was awesome to see that many teams and that many people come back after an event where it rained from the start, because I was there at the beginning at the start, and then we went to a couple places and watched them go around, and then ended up at Richardson when it was pouring down raining as they were coming in. And it was amazing how much fun they had even in the pouring rain, and thank God the lightning stayed away. So a great event, again, for Wilton Manors.
Yeah.
Julie or Justin, do you want
I agree, the canoe race was great, and I was there early in the morning and spent most of the day changing into dry clothes. But it was really great. Also, there was an event, an Equality Florida kind of event this past week, and it was great seeing Vice Mayor, I think I saw you there, and some of my other colleagues. So that's all I've had going, and I was very happy to see the...
Robert Lee there too, right?
Oh,
Judge Lee.
yeah, Judge Lee was there. That was wonderful. I got to speak with him. And I was also very happy to have the foster care month. We had done that in 2013, and I was happy to bring that back, and hopefully we'll be able to do that annually as a tradition. That's it.
All right. Yep, just a couple quick things. Again, canoe race was amazing. I'm always proud to share something in common with Wilton Manors, and that our birthdays are respectively both in the month of May, but the fact that we celebrate our whole community on our day is amazing, and there is no place anywhere where you can do what we do to celebrate our city's birthday by circumnavigating it by...
city.
Yep.
Yeah, I know of no other city, unless you want to go all the way down to Key West maybe, but I don't.
Yep.
Needless to say, great event, and my appreciation to staff for being, again, available and changing the venues and making sure that everything went off without a hitch. I also did attend, and it's worth noting that the Skip Stadnick's memorial service occurred between our last meetings, and of course, attending that. He will forever be remembered as an important part of our community, and the mayor officiated over a great deal of it, and Commissioner Carson, you were there and spoke as well. And so I'm glad to see that we'll be possibly renaming that award with that recommendation for the CAB award in his honor.
Can you say his whole name?
No, I cannot, and Commissioner Green always asks me that too.
Oh.
So I flatly
I don't know
admit no.
how much of that is fiction versus
Listen,
truth.
it
Just skip Skadden.
Needless to say, and since I did mention Commissioner Green, I would hope that in some component of your comments with regards to the climate change issue, that you do mention the issue of the rising sea levels and how that impacts our navigation with our bridges as they solicit the input of the city and how we are impacted. That is certainly one very visible way that we, Santa Claus and others, take note of every time the waters rise.
Santa's going to have to lose weight.
Well, I just want to, I attended a lot of these events as well, and I wanted to really just highlight how much work our staff has been doing really kind of seamlessly to make these things go off as well as they have. Starting with CANA and all the presentations from the senior, a number of us were at the CANA meeting, and we saw the presentations, and I heard really wonderful comments from residents who were there who saw that, from both Dave and Pamela, and I'm just drawing a blank on others who gave presentations there, the police, of course. And I know that there were some complaints as well about some of that, and some people were challenging the information provided or whatever, but everyone appreciates the opportunity to get information from the city, especially from such high-level city staff. And so we do, and this is at night, and it's a lot of work that goes into those presentations as well. So we do appreciate that. And because it's great to provide firsthand information from the city is stop all the rumors and everything that go around. So we really do appreciate that. And I know some people sometimes do not appreciate all the work that goes into that. So thank you for doing all that. And I want to thank Johnny for doing all the work he did with respect to Skip and getting all of the information for the obituary and for the commission meeting and for the memorial service where I spoke. It was a lot of work, and you did a wonderful job with it, and as always. And so thank you for doing everything that you've done with respect to those items as well. I attended Judge Lisa Porter's retirement party. She announced that she is retiring starting next month, and she and Patty are going to be spending a lot of time in New Hampshire another tax-free state. So they've got it pretty much planned out and figured out, and everybody wishes them very, very well. And they'll still be spending a lot of time in Wilton Manors, so we're not totally losing them. To the extent Leisure Services was involved in helping out with the Stadnick Memorial as well and the service, that was a really nice job and went off without a hitch, and everybody really appreciated it. And while we always sing the praises of Richardson Park for renting out and weddings and venues and things like that, Island City Community Center is really, really a lovely venue. That's a really nice venue. It's good parking. It's got a nice boardwalk and trees, and so we should, I'm sure that rents quite frequently as well, but it's a really nice event, nice venue. I attended the Friends of the Wilton Manors Library event with, obviously the library staff was there, and Rick gave a presentation. Trying to think of other city staff that were there.
Did you see me there?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember.
You too.
I was there.
Oh yeah, he actually made an announcement. You know, I'm here also, or something like that. So I guess he was there. But you know, Rick does a really nice job with the Friends group, and you know, talking. And there were a lot of questions about the budget, about the city budget, but more specifically about the library budget. And so he was able to answer all of those questions and talk about the importance of the Friends and supporting some of the events and the activities of the library. I wanted to thank the city clerk for coordinating the turquoise event. You know, it was very, very nice, and hopefully raised awareness for cancer. So that was well done as well. And I also attended the Wilton Manors Business Association first ever directory giveaway party. City manager was there. I think most members of the city commission were there. I know a lot of Johnny was there. I think some other members of the city staff. And I did, you know, I know they're gone, but I wanted to commend Tim. I commended him there that night for doing such a nice job with the business association. They really have raised it to a new level. And I kind of was disappointed in hearing Paul's comments because, you know, you can take anything and select a couple things and say, oh, I really don't like what they're doing with respect to this or whatever. But on a whole, Tim has an amazing thing going with the business association now. In fact, I intend to go to their luncheon this week because he announced that night that it meant so much that I showed up at his first luncheon. He even told his mother about it. And I'm like, why does it mean such a big deal to somebody for the mayor to show up at a business association luncheon? But if it meant so much to him, I'll go to the one this Thursday. Plus, they have a good luncheon. It's a bonus. Yeah, so it's a nice event.
He responded really well, I thought.
Yeah, no,
Very nice, very
that's
professional.
what it needs. I mean, you know, he thanked for the comments and the, you know, but it's a lot of things get put on the record and then everyone assumes it's true, and it's not always the case. And so it's good to be able to kind of clear the record with in some respects.
It was a kind response.
It wasn't, right?
Very kind.
Which is always the way we do it. Very professional, very kind, just, well, everyone is trying to do what's best for the city, and Tim is certainly not accepted from that. So I'm sure he was looking at a way to do that in a way that would be favorable to the city. I also attended Lambda Legal's event. They had their national reception for Southeast Florida. People flew down from New York, and they happened to have it at Sea and Olive in Wilton Manors, the same night as the Business Association event. So they were right near each other. I was able to go to both. I know people that drove up from Miami to come to that, as well as representatives from Lambda Legal who flew down from New York to attend that event. Primarily a fundraiser, but it's also to create awareness for the organization and all the great things that it's doing. So I think we're kind of evented out. I mean, I'm not even mentioning the canoe race and the, you know, and the birthday party and all of these great events, because every single day is some other event. But hopefully you guys get to take a little bit of a rest, but then you have Stonewall coming up, and you've been meeting constantly about that. So
Let's adjourn. Give them a...
we'll adjourn. And, but I just wanted to take the moment to thank our staff for making all of these things seem seamless. So thank you very much, and we will see you at the next event.
Okay.